Painting I made when I was on shrooms. There's a cool thing about it I just learned. Sounds like a drum. Let's read some I-ming. Two heads, one tail, Young Yin. Three heads, Old Yang. Two heads, one tail, Young Yin. Three tails, Old Yin. Two tails, one head, Young Yang. Three tails. Old yin. Our bottom trigram or inner trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken, or you could call it open, whole, open, or yin, yang, yin. This is the trigram Kan. Kan is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, which is fire and light, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. And our top or outer trigram for our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken. Again, that's Kan water. Kan water above Kan water give us the hexagram 29. Our second, fourth, and sixth lines are all old lines. Second being an old yang, fourth and sixth being old yin. All those will transform to their younger opposites. So old yang will transform into young yin. Old yin will transform into young yang. Once old yang transforms into young yin, we will get a bottom trigram of broken, 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 which is Kun, earth. Kun is earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest west, and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. Southwest. Kun earth will be below once these transform. This will be solid, 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 and that will be Qian heaven. So it will be earth beneath heaven. Qian heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Qian heaven above Kun earth. give us a hexagram. 12. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from this glorious I-ming commentary by I-ming, who wrote it in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 29, I-ming calls. Mastering Pitfalls. One of the 4 timeless hexagrams, restoring the celestial within the mundane. And a supporting hexagram of 12, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 12 is obstruction, submitting inwardly to personal desire, acting aggressive outwardly. We will start out reading from Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. It's a nice introductory commentary. Hexagram 29, Hilary Barrett calls repeating chasms. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Hexagram 29, repeating chasms. Key questions. What are you sure of in your heart when nothing else is sure? How can you flow on and through the dark? Oracle, repeating chasms. There is truth and confidence. Holding your heart fast creates success. Movement brings honor. These are pits where you fall into the deep, dark waters, flowing on into the swirling, unknowable dark. The chasms repeat. There is no detour that would take you round them, so you must practice and learn the way of these deep places. First, there must be truth and confidence. Truth to the present moment, because this is simply how it is, and trust in your inner knowing, so you can be unreservedly present with an unshakable grasp on the essential core. In these deep waters, there is nothing solid out there to hold on to. No external security, no way to orient yourself. And so you hold fast to your heart. This is a way to create success, staying in communication with creative source, even in the chasm. In movement, you find a different kind of security, one that depends on your heart, courage, and commitment. This is the truest test of your convictions, when you have no way of knowing where your leaps of faith might land. Sitting in the bottom of the chasm does not bring honor, action does. Also, it's a way to be sure of yourself as an individual after everything else has fallen away. You act, and you become skilled in flowing through the steep-sided chasms. Image. Waters flow on and reach the end, repeating chasms. A noble one acts with constant character and teaches things by repeating. Many small tributaries flow together to create a broad river, Many small commitments flow together to create a powerful character. A noble one understands that just one extraordinary leap of faith is not enough. By acting consistently, he creates a continuity of principles that people can depend on when all else is in flux. Chasm right here. Such repetition is a way of conveying a message to others, and sometimes also of convincing and changing yourself as you learn more skillful ways of thinking. This is like the water. It carves out a course and creates its own momentum. Sequence. Repeating chasms follow from Hexagram 28, Great Exceeding. Things cannot end with excess, and so the chasm follows. The chasm means falling. In Hexagram 28, the house's ridgepole was buckling. Now it has given way. You overburdened or simply outgrew the external framework that supported you, and now you are falling. Pair. Repeating chasms are paired and contrasted with Hexagram 30, Clarity. Clarity is above, the chasm is below. These are natural opposites, above and below, fire and water, light and dark, waking and dreaming, yet together they create a single landscape. Chinese tradition says that after its journey across the sky, the sun is bathed in the river at the foot of the leaning mulberry tree. The sun itself needs to repeat the chasm. And our supporting hexagram 12, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hilary Barrett calls blocked. Key questions. What work can you do when nothing is working? Who are you when no one is noticing? Oracle. Blocking it, non-people. Noble one's constancy bears no fruit. Great goes, small comes. Nothing moves or grows. Communication doesn't happen. Everything is negated and blocked, and this is because of non-people. That may mean that some people are a consistently, exclusively, and pathologically negative influence and sabotage all attempts at progress. It can also refer to perceiving someone as not quite a real person, explaining their behavior with labels and stereotypes rather than seeking to understand. In both cases, there is a complete failure of empathy. This means that your very best and strongest efforts come to nothing. You can have a soaring imaginative concept of the creative possibilities here. You can have the will to be true to that concept and carry it through. You're not doing anything wrong. The problem is that these creative possibilities are just not available when things are blocked. Small concerns dominate. The adaptive response is not to strive constantly to rise to a higher level, but to focus your attention on the small details, the immediate, uninspiring reality. Image. Heaven and earth do not interact. Blocked. A noble one uses his strengths sparingly to avoid hardship. He does not allow himself honors and payment. Inspiration soars upward. The opportunities for its realization sink ever further out of reach below. There is no creative connection between the two. The noble one has noticed that the harder you bang your head against a brick wall, the more bruised you get, and so he is economical with his energy and talents. Equally, he does not look for rewards under this regime. The ones who are rewarded now are not noble. He has other priorities than external results and recognition. Sequence. Blocked follows from hexagram 11, flow. Things cannot end with flowing together, and so blocked follows. Effortless communication and mutual openness is a beautiful thing, but it cannot last forever, and perhaps it's somehow incomplete. Could it be that we need to be blocked and cut off so we can grow more strongly from deeper roots? We'll now turn to our primary hexagram and read our changing lines 2, 4, and 6. And each of those changing lines, that part of the reading will put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 2 has the general context, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 6 has the general context of beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Our primary hexagram 29, repeating chasms, changing line 2. The chasm has sheer sides. Seek small gains. Down at the bottom of the pit, you aspire to be out in the open where you belong, relating freely and naturally with others. However, the chasm has sheer sides. You can't escape it in a single bound. So don't try to leap to the perfect conclusion or design the whole picture at once. To travel towards that free and open space, seek only the small gains that are available to you here and now. Travel inward first and trust your intuition from moment to moment to show the next small step. Changing line 4. A cup of wine, a pair of dishes, using earthenware. Let in with ropes from the window. In the end, no mistake. Imagine someone isolated in a prison pit with just a small opening to the world above and help lowered through the opening. With a link to the world above the pit, there's no longer any need to dig further down. This is a very simple picture. There's an opening and a connection, and there is help. It's not much. You may wish it could be more or faster, but there's really no call for a more elaborate offering. Simplicity and discretion help to ensure the connection can be made smoothly, where grand gestures might alert the guards and trigger a defensive reaction. Changing line 6. Bound with good rope and cords, shut away in a thorn thicket, for 3 years gains nothing. Pitfall. At first, you are bound into relationship with its ties and limits. The water in the chasm will stay within its limits. This is how it can flow through. But when limits are not observed or bonds not honored, you are shut away from the flow altogether. Then you are utterly trapped. Your confinement will last for the set time, and there is nothing constructive to be done. We will also take a look at what I-ming has to say about the situation in I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Once we get to the end of this part of the reading in this book, the commentary section, it will be more alchemical-like. Hexagram 29, I-ming again calls mastering pitfalls, or double pitfall. In mastering pitfalls, there is truthfulness. Thus the mind develops. There is excellence in practice. Explanation. Pitfalls mean danger. As of a precipice or pitfall, mastering pitfalls means getting through danger. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, dangerous, and below is also water, dangerous. Going from one danger to another, yet able to get through successfully in spite of danger. It is therefore called mastering pitfalls. This hexagram represents the presence of white within black, restoring yang within yin. It follows on the previous hexagram, nourishment. Nourishment means seeking fulfillment by emptiness, seeking the true yang that has fallen in the pit. In human beings, after heaven and earth interact, the one point of original yang runs to the palace of earth. Earth is filled in and becomes water, and heaven changes into fire. At this point, yin traps the yang, the celestial root is obscured, and the mind gets involved with things. Though near to reality by nature, people become estranged from it by habit. Descending lower and lower by daily repetition of habit, they fall into a state of ignorant obstinacy and do not know how to stop. However, if one practices evil, one becomes evil. If one practices good, one becomes good. It is simply a matter of how people habitually act. Practice of evil is a way into danger. Practice of good is a way out of danger. Getting out of danger requires that one believe it is dangerous. Belief rules the mind. If one can believe in the danger, then one will not be seduced by external things. Practicing good, one can then be good. As it is said, once you reform, it is the same as if you were originally thus. Therefore, in mastering pitfalls, there is truthfulness. Thus the mind develops. If there is truthfulness, then the mind develops. Without truthfulness, the mind does not develop. The mind with truthfulness is the mind of Tao. When the mind of Tao becomes manifest, the human mentality does not arise. Sane energy grows. Aberrant energy recedes, and one can thus go in and out of yin and yang without being constrained by yin and yang. But believing there is danger requires one to practice so as to get out of danger. Believing but not practicing is like not believing. Once one can believe and can practice, without hypocrisy or deception, practicing truly, one improves daily with daily practice, rising from lowliness to loftiness, gradually learning a state of exalted illumination, developing one's nature to the fullest extent and realizing one's purpose in life, returning to the fundamental without difficulty. Therefore, the text says, there is excellence in practice. If one practices this, one can rise. Without practice, one does not rise. Knowing this is only valuable when one puts it into practice. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Number 12, obstruction. Obstruction's denial of humanity does not make the superior person's rectitude beneficial. The great goes and the small comes. Explanation. Obstruction means blockage. As for the qualities of the hexagram, inside is earth, submissive, and outside is heaven, strong. Submitting to one's desires, outwardly acting adamant, negative energy is in charge, while positive energy retreats. Because strength and receptivity are separated, it is called obstruction. This hexagram represents yin and yang not joining. It follows on the previous hexagram, treading. Treading is promoting strength with harmony and joyfulness, causing yin and yang to join, so strength and receptivity are united. In general, when yin and yang do not combine, true yin changes into false yin, and true yang changes into false yang. The primordial is lost, and the false energy enters. False energy enters, and true energy recedes. That is why obstruction's denial of humanity does not make the superior person's rectitude beneficial. Denial of humanity is false energy. The superior person is true energy. When the primordial has not been injured and true yang is within, the single mass of true energy is the superior person. When the primordial has been lost and the true yang is scattered externally, whatever the body has is false energy. To follow that conditioned yin, indulging in emotions and giving free rein to desires without any limit, is denying humanity. That denying is not beneficial to true energy. At this time, the practitioner of the Tao should get rid of intellectualism and gather the energy and spirit within to preserve true yang. Particularly at this disadvantageous time, just when the great goes and the small comes, when negative energy does things, if one does not know how to forestall danger, one will increasingly produce obstruction, and it will be very disadvantageous. We'll turn back to our primary hexagram and read our changing lines 2, 4, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 2 has the general context of the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Good question. Our primary hexagram 29, Mastering Pitfalls, changing line 2. There is danger in a pitfall. One finds a small gain. Explanation. Dwelling in the middle of two yins, daily in the company of petty people, and not knowing to approach people imbued with Tao, one will ultimately fall and become a fool, just as there is danger in a pitfall. Fortunately, if one is strong and balanced and has not fallen far, though one may not be able to get out of danger, one has inner autonomy and is not influenced by base people. But it is undesirable that one believe in the danger, yet not learn how to get out of danger. There is only a small gain, and one cannot clarify the good and return to the primary, which would be a great gain. This is being strong, but not knowing how to cultivate good. Changing line 4, 1 jug of wine, 2 vessels. Use simplicity, sincerity, and openness, and in the end there will be no fault. Explanation. On the border of strength above the weakness below, being a middling sort of person, if one practices good, one can be good, and if one practices evil, one becomes evil. One can be good or bad. It is like there is 1 jug of wine, but 2 vessels are used to serve it. However, this 4th line dwells with the 5th. Those who have faith in good believe in goodness and defer to the wise with open minds, borrowing the lucid knowledge of others to break up their own ignorance, using simplicity, sincerity, and openness to let in light. In this way can those incapable of good become capable of good, and the faulty can become impeccable. This is being flexible and able to practice good. And changing line 6. Bound with rope, put in a briar patch. For 3 years one cannot find the way out. Misfortune. Explanation. Even petty people are essentially not bad. It is just that in spite of essential goodness, they do not know how to practice and develop goodness. They bind and restrict themselves and get tied up in what is not good, abandoning and ruining themselves, living in peril. This is like being bound with rope and put in a briar patch. Ultimately, they will inevitably perish. It is not only for 3 years that they will not find a way out of danger. This is base, foolish obstinacy, never cultivating oneself and ending up bad. So those who practice the Tao should wake up and follow true teachers, seeking a way out. in order to comprehend their essence in life. Don't ruin and abandon yourself and become useless to the world just because you may have little in the way of blessings. Everyone has a part in the study of body and mind, essence and life. The goal is near at hand. One may mount the foundation of sagehood directly. It is just a matter of people being able to believe and practice. If one can actually believe in this and practice it, one will improve with daily practice and will eventually cultivate the state of perfect good without evil, integrated with celestial principle. What happiness do people find in not practicing good? And turning to the commentary section for our primary hexagram 29. In the back is called double water. Water above, water below. Water travels, double water. Thus do superior people consistently practice virtue and learn how to teach. Double water means water reaching from here to there. Above is water, below is water. This is water traveling from here to there, from there to here, traveling, flowing throughout. This is the image of double water. That part always feels like a Dr. Seuss line. What superior people see in this is that the work of sages is twofold, involving both self-development and development of others. Self-development is the practice of virtue. Development of others is teaching. If virtuous practice is inconsistent, it is hard to enter the universal Tao. If teaching is not learned, students will not understand. Therefore, they work on virtuous practice day by day and month by month, becoming familiar with the old and aware of the new, increasing their efforts as time goes on, aiming for profound attainment of self-realization. Then when it comes to teaching, they gradually develop guidance, making clear presentations and subtle indications, leading students further and further on until they penetrate thoroughly and are free from doubt. The practice of virtue is the study of body and mind, nature and life. It is a very refined and subtle science in which the slightest deviation can produce an enormous loss. It can be accomplished only by constancy and consistency, thoroughly investigating its principles, fulfilling nature, and arriving at the meaning of life. Teaching is a matter of receiving from forebears and educating successors. It is very urgent and necessary. If instruction is unclear, people will be misled as to the course they should pursue. One can develop others only if one learns how to teach, which involves searching out the profound and the recondite and clarifying that which is obscure. The work of teaching is based on the practice of virtue. Teaching means teaching the practice of virtue. Only if one is consistent and constant in the practice of virtue can one learn and practice teaching. If one cannot be consistent in the practice of virtue, then teaching will be baseless and unguided. When one is consistent in the practice of virtue and afterward learns how to teach, then what is consistent and constant in oneself is what is learned by others. This is like water traveling from here to there. It is all the same water, able to flow everywhere. And our supporting hexagram 12, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, obstruction. Heaven above, earth below. When heaven and earth do not commune, there is obstruction. The superior person, therefore, is parsimonious with power and avoids trouble, not susceptible to elevation by emolument. Obstruction is blockage. Above is heaven, below is earth. The energy of earth rises up from below. The energy of heaven descends from above. The energies of heaven and earth, the celestial and the mundane, do not mix, and myriad things are stifled. This is the image of obstruction. What superior people see in this is that heaven and earth, yin and yang, do not mix. Myriad things are inert, and when the celestial and the earthly and the human being do not commune, natural reality is damaged. Therefore, they are reserved and reclusive at the appropriate times, sparing with their powers and qualities, thus avoiding trouble, not susceptible to elevation by emolument. To be parsimonious with power means to banish intellectualism, to conceal one's illumination and nurture it in secret, borrowing the temporal to preserve the primordial, not letting any external influences adulterate natural reality. This is because once people get mixed up in acquired conditioning, the false comes and the real departs. The mind is seduced by things, the nature is deranged, and life is destabilized. No obstruction is more of a hindrance than this. No trouble is more of a problem than this. If one does not know to escape quickly, as soon as there is any ambition for honor or material gain or any emotional feeling about objects of sense, this will cause even more obstruction. How can one then avoid injurious trouble? Not susceptible to being elevated to a high post in the world, one is not moved by glory or emolument, much less by petty gains. The words parsimonious with power are very pregnant, involving many things and most detailed effort. Whatever talent or knowledge one has, one should hide it and be stolid as a monumental rampart, forgetting others and self, having power yet not being conscious of it. If one is conscious of one's power, that is not being parsimonious. Precisely because one is not conscious of one's power, one cannot be elevated by emolument. If emolument cannot elevate one, the trouble is no longer there, and the obstruction disappears of itself. Thus, though the earthly and the celestial do not commune at first, they will inevitably join in the end. So the effect of avoiding trouble by being parsimonious with power is not small. We will also see what James Dekorne has to say in his Gnostic Book of Changes, which is a synthesis of several I-ming commentaries in one helpful place. I've left links to it in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself and has left helpful editor's notes and quotes from things like the Kabbalah. 29, our primary hexagram, he calls danger. Other titles might be the abysmal, the symbol of sinking, water, the abyss, gorge, repeating gorge, repeated entrapment, double pitfall, multiple danger, double water, the deep, dark forces, the perilous pit. And a quote from D.F. Hook, may not be as bad as it sounds, but whatever happens, remain true to yourself. Judgment, leg. The trigram of danger, here repeated, shows the possession of sincerity through which the mind is penetrating. Action in accordance with this will be of high value. Wilhelm/Baines, the abysmal repeated. If you are sincere, you have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeeds. Blowfold, abyss upon abyss, grave danger. All will be well if confidence is maintained and a sharp hold kept upon the mind. Activities so conducted will win esteem. Blue, water doubled, danger. Sincerity leads to success or peacefulness in your heart and mind. You will succeed in your actions. This hexagram means danger, misfortune, or entanglement in a difficult situation. You should be both careful and patient. Do not struggle with all of the difficulties around you. Ritzema/Karcher. Repeating gorge, possessing conformity, holding fast the heart, growing. Movement possesses honor. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a dangerous situation you cannot avoid. It emphasizes that taking the risk without reserve, the action of gorge, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to venture and fall. Wu, entrapment indicates there is confidence. The heart of the matter is that it is pervasive. Actions taken in its accord will be commendable. The image. Leg. The image of water flowing on continuously forms the repeated trigram of danger. The superior man, in accordance with this, maintains constantly the virtue of his heart and the sincerity of his conduct, and practices the business of instruction. Wilhelm/Baines, water flows on uninterruptedly and reaches its goal. The image of the abysmal repeated. Thus, the superior man walks in lasting virtue and carries on the business of teaching. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes water flowing on and abyss upon abyss. The trigram Khan is usually inauspicious. Here, it occurs in duplicate as the upper and the lower trigram. Thus, the implication is that we are beset by grave dangers from which, if we can escape them at all, the utmost skill and confidence will be required to extricate ourselves. The superior man acts in accordance with the immutable virtues and spends much of his time instructing others in the conduct of affairs. Lu. Water flows unceasingly into the depths, symbolizing water doubled. The superior man constantly preserves his virtue and practices his task of education. Ritzma/Carter. Streams reiterating, culminating, repeating gorge. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses rules actualizing Tao to move. A Chunsu uses repeating to teach affairs. To actualize Tao. D. Realize Tao in action. Power, virtue, ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D. Acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Cleary 1. Water travels, double water. Thus do superior people consistently practice virtue and learn how to teach. Cleary 2. Water comes repeatedly, multiple danger. Developed people practice teaching by constant virtuous action. This is in perfect accord with the Tiantai, I don't know how to say that, Tiantai, Buddhist teaching of knowing how to get through an impasse, the method of making an impasse itself into a way through. This is also the method of skillfully using natural ills. Wu. Water comes time and again. This is entrapment. Thus the Chunsi practices virtuous conduct and reviews didactics. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Danger repeated shows us one defile succeeding another. This is the nature of water. It flows on without accumulating its volume so as to overflow. It pursues its way through a dangerous defile without losing its true nature. That the mind is penetrating is indicated by the dynamic line in the center. Advance in accordance with this will be followed by achievement. The dangerous height of heaven cannot be ascended. The difficult places of the earth are mountains, rivers, hills, and mounds. Kings and princes arrange, by means of such strengths, to maintain their territories. Great indeed is the use of what is here taught about seasons of peril. Leg. The trigram of danger, which is doubled to form this hexagram, is the symbol of water and means a pit, a perilous cavity or defile with water flowing through it. The trigrams consist of a dynamic central line between two magnetic lines. Together, they symbolize danger, how it should be encountered, its effects on the mind, and how to escape from it. Liang Yen says, water stops at the proper time and moves at the proper time. Is not this an emblem of the course of the superior man in dealing with danger? The Konghasi editors say that to exercise oneself in meeting difficulty and peril is the way to establish and strengthen the character, and the use of such experience is seen in all measures of self-defense. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Commitment to the work engenders a keen discernment of threatening situations and the factors which create them. With the ability to recognize the dangerous elements in a situation, success is assured. The superior man maintains his connection with the self and learns from the trials thus provided. This is one of the first hexagram that one learns to recognize by name and number, and it is usually received with trepidation. Like the death card in tarot, it is often interpreted as an evil omen, although a deeper understanding reveals opportunity rather than defeat in such images. There is danger and suffering in the work, but probably far less of it in the long run than in an ordinary unexamined life. Anguish in the surface of purpose is ultimately tolerable. It is the incredible suffering of ignorance that is truly tragic, all that pain and sorrow expended on worldly illusions. The Confucian commentary provides some valuable insights concerning the defensive use of danger by kings and princes to protect their realms. To master a dangerous challenge before one can progress to a higher level of awareness is a classic theme of initiation. Without it, the candidate would be destroyed by forces he wasn't ready to confront. This is the purpose and meaning behind the guardian of the threshold archetype. Danger is evil or unfortunate only if one is intimidated by it. Correct behavior in accordance with the principles of the work will always take you to your destination. The self will seldom, if ever, give you a test that you cannot pass if you fully apply yourself. When it seems otherwise, bear in mind that failure often renders better lessons than success, or the illusion thereof. A quote from Jung in Civilization in Transition. A neurosis is by no means merely a negative thing, it is also something positive. Only a soulless rationalism reinforced by a narrow materialistic outlook could possibly have overlooked this fact. In reality, the neurosis contains the patient's psyche, or at least an essential part of it. And if, as the rationalist pretends, the neurosis could be plucked from him like a bad tooth, he would have gained nothing but would have lost something very essential to him. That is to say, he would have lost as much as the thinker deprived of his doubt, or the moralist deprived of his temptation, or the brave man deprived of his fear. To lose a neurosis is to find oneself without an object. Life loses its point and hence its meaning. This would not be a cure, it would be a regular amputation. In our supporting hexagram 12, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, James Dekorne calls divorcement. Other titles might be standstill, the symbol of closing, stagnation, obstruction, the wife, obstructed, decadence, disjunction, impasse. A quote from D.F. Hook, yin supporting yang, which is wrong, they part company, bad prospects for marriage or partnership. Judgment, leg. Divorcement means there is a lack of communication between the different classes of men. This is unfavorable to the superior man. The great has departed and the inferior has arrived. Wilhelm/Baines, standstill. Evil people do not further the perseverance of the superior man. The great departs, the small approaches. Blofeld, stagnation, obstruction caused by evildoers. Although the omen portends ill for the superior man, he must not slacken his righteous persistence. The great and the good decline, the mean approach. When heaven and earth cease to cooperate, no growth is possible and stagnation results. The trigram earth, when in intercourse with heaven, has the auspicious meaning of glad acceptance, but when separated from heaven, it represents weakness and darkness, etc. Lu, stagnation. Stagnation is of no benefit, although not of man's doing. The superior man carries on according to his principles. The great is departing, the small is arriving. Ritzema/Karcher, obstructing it, in no way people, not harvesting. Junsu trial, or chief son, or superior person, the great going, the small coming. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being blocked or interfered with. It emphasizes that accepting the hindrances that temporarily interrupt the flow of life and thwart communication is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to accept obstruction. Slofnacy, the wife's non-persons, not beneficial for the gentleman to determine. The great go, the little come. Clary 1. Obstruction's denial of humanity does not make the superior person's rectitude beneficial. The great goes and the small comes. Clary 2. Does not make the leader's correctness beneficial, etc. Wu. Stagnation is destined to cause obstruction of normal course of action. It is not beneficial to the Chun-Si who takes a persevering stand. The great goes out and the small comes in. The image. Leg. Heaven and earth are estranged, the image of divorcement. The superior man preserves his virtue by withdrawing from evil and refuses both honor and wealth. Wilhelm/Baines. Heaven and earth do not unite, the image of standstill. Thus the superior man falls back upon his inner worth in order to escape the difficulties. He does not permit himself to be honored with revenue. Blofeld. This hexagram symbolizes heaven and earth cut off from each other. To conserve his stock of virtue, the superior man withdraws into himself and thus escapes from the evil influences around him. He declines all temptations of honor and riches. To understand why the trigrams for heaven and earth arranged in what seems to be their natural positions have this inauspicious significance, see notes on the preceding hexagram harmony. Lu. Heaven and earth are not united, symbolizing stagnation. The superior man restrains himself to avoid danger. He seeks neither honor nor wealth. Ritsuma/Karcher. Heaven, earth not mingling, obstruction. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses parsimonious actualizing Tao to cast out heaviness. A Chunsu uses not permitting splendor to use benefits. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Clary 1. When heaven and earth do not commune, there is obstruction. The superior person therefore is parsimonious with power and avoids trouble, not susceptible to elevation by emolument. Commentary. Well, this one is actually helpful too. Wu, before the commentary. The Chun-Si, or chief son or superior person, practices the virtue of frugality to alleviate difficulties, but does not allow himself to be honored with official salary. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. The unfavorable auspice of divorcement is because heaven and earth are not in communication, and all things consequently fail to unite. High and low, superior and inferior do not meet in union, and there are no well-regulated states in the kingdom. The lower trigram consists of magnetic lines and the upper of dynamic lines. Darkness is within, clarity without. Weakness within, strength without. The lower trigram represents the advancing inferior men. The upper trigram represents the retreating superior men. Leg. The form of divorcement is the exact opposite of harmony, and much of what has been said on the interpretation of that will apply to this. Divorcement is the hexagram of the 7th month when the process of growth has ended and increasing decay may be expected. The trigram of earth is below and that of heaven is above, and since it is always proper for the lower trigram to take the initiative, how can earth take the place of heaven? As in nature, it is heaven that originates, not earth, and in a state, the upper classes must take the initiative and not the lower. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. The time is out of joint. Decadence waxes and virtue is mocked. The superior man refuses to participate in the prevailing disorder. If the preceding hexagram images the fruitful union of heaven and earth in a holy marriage, this figure shows their divorcement. Divorcement, the act, process, or an instance of separating things closely joined, the state of being separated. To receive this figure without changing lines suggests that you are separated from truth or virtue, or that for the moment at least, the situation at hand affords no possibility of reconciliation. During such conditions, it would be the height of folly to wed oneself to the prevailing disorder. Note, however, that every line but the third shows some kind of effort to reunite that which has been separated. The first shows an alliance of closely related elements bent on serving the work. Line 2 depicts a kind of holding action, which is necessary to allow a superior element to prevail. The third line identifies recalcitrant forces which prevent union, and 4 depicts another alliance, a higher octave of its first line correlate. Line 5 images nearly complete reunification, and 6 shows the end of divorcement. These images suggest that although disunion prevails, the energy in the situation is promoting connection. As regards the judgment, a quote from H.G. Creel in Confucius and the Chinese Way, Plato seems to have expressed Confucius's idea perfectly. In the Republic, he makes Socrates say that the true philosopher, finding himself in an evil environment, will not join in the wickedness of his fellows, but neither is he able singly to resist all their fierce natures, and therefore seeing that he would be of no use to the state or to his friends, and reflecting that he would have to throw away his life without doing any good either to himself or others, he holds his peace and goes his own way. He is content if only he can live his own life and be pure from evil or unrighteousness, and depart in peace and goodwill with bright hopes. We will now get back to our primary hexagram 29 and read our changing lines 2, 4, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Each has its own general context. The context of changing line 2 is the heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. The general context of line 4 is the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And the general context of line 6 is beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. In hexagram 29, danger, changing line 2. Leg. The second line dynamic shows its subject in all the peril of the defile. He will, however, get a little of the deliverance that he seeks. Wilhelm/Baines. The abyss is dangerous. One should strive to attain small things only. Blowfold. Danger lurks within the abyss. Only in small matters can he obtain what he desires. Clary 1. There is danger in a pitfall. One finds a small gain. Dwelling in the middle of two yins, daily in the company of petty people, and not knowing to approach people imbued with Tao, one will ultimately fall and become a fool, just as there is danger in a pitfall. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. He will not yet escape from his environed position. Wilhelm/Baines. One should strive to attain small things only, for the middle has not yet been passed. Blowfold. Though he obtain these trifles, he remains with the abyss. Whatever small successes we may win will not have any effect in lessening the danger that threatens. Ritzema/Karcher. Not yet issuing forth from the center indeed. Cleary 2. Not yet gotten out of the middle. Wu. He has not stepped out of the center of danger. Leg. Line 2 is dynamic and in the center. Although unable to escape the danger completely, at least he doesn't involve himself more deeply in it, like the first line does, and therefore he obtains a measure of relief. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. A person in danger should not try to escape at one stroke. He should first calmly hold his own, then be satisfied with small gains, which will come by creative adaptations. Wing. The danger is great and cannot be surmounted with one single action. Small, consistent efforts to stay afloat in a sea of difficulties are all that are possible at this time. Editor. The image portrays a tight spot. Calm awareness of the realities of the situation enables one to prevail without panic. Go with the flow until an exit presents itself. In psychological terms, it is possible that inner forces are being stressed for integration. The ego can only destroy the work by giving them an outlet. A quote from Plotinus in the Enneads. Knowledge of good is sharpened by experience of evil in those incapable of any sure knowledge of evil unless they have experienced it. James Dekorne breaks changing line 2 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, don't fight dark forces. Adapt to your situation until you can escape. And B, a dangerous though stable position. Remain calm and don't rock the boat. And then changing line 4 of hexagram 29, danger. Leg, the fourth line magnetic shows its subject at a feast with simply a bottle of spirits and a subsidiary basket of rice, while the cups and bowls are only of earthenware. She introduces her important lesson as her ruler's intelligence admits. There will in the end be no error. Wilhelm/Baines, a jug of wine, a bowl of rice with it. Earthen vessels simply handed in through the window. There is certainly no blame in this. Blofeld, a flagon of wine and a bamboo food basket, both. These objects were handed to him through a hole in the rock. To the very end, he remains free from blame. The terrible trouble in which we find ourselves occurs through no fault of ours. Others are able to help us to some extent, but it looks as though their help may serve only to prolong our agony. Lou, a jug of wine, 2 bowls of food should be put into an earthen container and passed through the window. There is no blame in the end. Ritzema/Karcher, a cup, liquor, a platter added, a veiling of a jar, letting in bonds originating from the window, completing without fault. Slofnacy, offering wine and tureens in pairs, use earthenware. Take in the angelica from the window. In the end, there is no trouble. Wu, using a jar of wine and a bamboo basket of food with ordinary table earthenware. He presents himself at the window. In the end, he will be blameless. The judgment describes a person in a precarious position, the 4th, presenting himself in a simple way to his ruler, the 5th. The scene may also be viewed as a loyal minister offering his counsel to his king in a time of crisis. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, this describes the meeting of the dynamic and magnetic lines. Wilhelm/Baines, it is the boundary between firm and yielding. Blofeld, this passage is suggested by the nature of the line, which forms a border between yielding and firm. Ritzema/Karcher, solid and supple, the border indeed. Cleary 2, the border of hard and soft. Wu, the meeting of the strong and weak. Leg, line 4 is the magnetic minister who will get no help from her first line correlate. She can't avert the danger herself, but she is close to the 5th line ruler, whom she cautiously enlightens with the sincerity of her simple nourishment. Consequently, there will be no error. Anthony, the sage, knowing that we are in danger, voluntarily comes to our aid. Consequently, we are enlightened by a breakthrough in our understanding. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the man is without a sponsor because of the lack of impressive gifts. Ceremonial forms and expensive gifts are unnecessary, however, during periods of great urgency. Spurred on by unostentatious sincerity, he presents his thoughts directly to the chief. No error will result from his honest request for mutual help during times of peril. Wing, take the simple and direct approach to solving your problems and overcoming difficulties. Strive for clarity of mind. Do not clutter your actions with useless pretense, since it will only confuse the situation. Editor, this image implies that the dangerous elements in the situation are caused by some kind of complexity. Vanity, bureaucracy, or Byzantine intellectualism, perhaps. Whatever it is, a return to basics is indicated. While surrounded by a feast of choices, one partakes only of simple nourishment, options. Quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. In order to effect a constructive and lasting change in our lives, we must strive toward a transformation of the potentially disrupting or disruptive complexes by reaching their archetypal cores. Such a transformation can occur only when we have gone beyond the personal dimension to the universal. This process is sustained by guidance from the objective psyche through dreams and fantasies. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, reduce the situation to its lowest common denominator and proceed from there. B, complexity demands patience. Nourish yourself on simplicity. And C, an educational process. The image suggests patience and gradual change. And changing line 6 of our primary hexagram 29 danger leg. The 6th line magnetic shows its subject bound with cords for 3 strands or 2 strands and placed in the thicket of thorns. But in 3 years she does not learn the course for her to pursue. There will be evil. Wilhelm/Baines, bound with cords and ropes, shut in between thorn-hedged prison walls. For 3 years one does not find the way. Misfortune. Blofeld, bound with black ropes and imprisoned amidst thorns. For 3 years he fails to obtain what he seeks. This situation is far from cheerful, but not as hopeless as the situation of those who receive moving lines in the 2nd and 3rd places. We did receive one in the 2nd. Lou, tied with thick ropes, one is put in prison among thorn bushes. One cannot find the way for 3 years. Misfortune. If you receive this line, avoid all entanglements, both physical and mental. Be cautious, or you will be detained. Ritzema/Karcher, trying availing of stranded ropes, dismissing tending towards dense jujube trees. 3 years' time not acquiring pitfall. Slofnacy, the attachment uses braids and cords. Place him in the clumped thorn bushes for 3 years not getting him. Inauspicious. Wu, he is tied with black ropes and surrounded by thorny vines. He cannot set himself free for 3 years. Foreboding. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. She misses her proper course. There will be evil for 3 years. Wilhelm/Baines. This misfortune continues for 3 years. Blofeld, the line indicates that we lose our way and suffer misfortune for 3 years. Ritzema/Karcher. Pitfall. 3 years' time indeed. Clary 2. The top yin loses the way. Unfortunate for 3 years. Wu. The 6th yin violates the proper way of doing things, and the violation results in the misfortune for 3 years. Leg. The case of line 6 is hopeless. When danger has reached its peak, there she is yielding without a proper correlate. I picture someone sitting on their porch saying that about someone across the street or their neighbor. The thicket of thorns is a metaphor for a prison. Anthony, misfortune comes because we press on, taking matters into our hands. This line warns of the failure we may expect in maintaining this attitude and notes the obstinacy that has brought us to this impasse. The remedy is to return to the path of perseverance. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. The man is hopelessly enmeshed in his own faults after missing the proper course. No chances of escape are apparent. Wing. None of your solutions or efforts have been appropriate. The way out of danger is blocked. There will come a long time of disorder. All you may do is wait. Editor. On the face of it, there is little ambiguity in this line. It depicts one who is severely confined because of not knowing the proper course to pursue. If we closely examine the psychological symbols of this restriction, however, we see deeper into the possible reasons for it. Chetwynd, in his Dictionary of Symbols, identifies cords or ropes with links to the inner psyche, the umbilical cord being the connection to the mother or source of our physical, emotional being. He also points out that thorns are a common symbol of the dark side of the mother principle. To be bound with cords and imprisoned by thorns, then, is to be trapped in a womb of primitive emotional darkness, or suffocated by some entity which does not want to evolve into consciousness, into conscious awareness. A quote from Plato in Phaedrus, I believe that's Phaedrus. The rest of the souls are also longing after the upper world, and they all follow, but not being strong enough, they are carried round below the surface, plunging, treading on one another, each striving to be first, and there is confusion and perspiration, and the extremity of effort. And many of them are lamed or have their wings broken through the ill driving of the charioteers. And all of them, after a fruitless toil, not having attained the mysteries of true being, Go away and feed upon opinion. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you have lost your way and are imprisoned by illusions. And B, your limiting beliefs prevent you from furthering the work. We'll now get a randomly card drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching, and I will try and sum up this reading. We got our primary hexagram of 29, danger or double pitfall, or mastering pitfalls. And in it, we had the trigram of calm water, which is being confronted by the haunting unknown and danger and solitude. And it's that one after the other. And so this does have an auspiciousness to it and involves, while one is in dangerous situations or in a pitfall, we have the ability and almost necessity to try and learn or find a teacher or use a good example when we're weak in that area to help us to get strong through that period of time. And also there's a certain amount of growth that occurs when there's nothing but adversity. And just to remove adversity doesn't always necessarily help with the goal of the work per se. In the goal of the work, it's to transform, and that often takes great pressure. So we're not out of the woods yet. And in our supporting hexagram 12, obstruction, this shows Kun earth below Kuan heaven. When Kuan heaven is below any other trigram, it supports it. So heaven would support earth. In this instance, it's like they're separated. And so there's not support in that sense. They're both, how do I say it? They're both inauspicious hexagrams, essentially. The obstruction is a situation where we may feel like we're at an impasse and there doesn't seem to be any way forward. In certain times like this, there may be, all you can do is try not to raise any warning bells and depart the situation entirely. And the most maybe you can hope for is to really not take on giant challenges or fight the righteous cause, as it were, in a certain sense, and more wait for the proper time to act when there's less danger and less obstruction. So the time is not ripe for putting your neck out there, so to speak, in that kind of a sense. And then our most focused part of our reading are changing lines 2, 4, and 6 of our primary hexagram 29, mastering pitfalls. The first one was just after the second line was just after the first line, which in the first line, it was someone in a pit that was actually sinking deeper into the pit. In the second changing line, which we received, we're still in the pit, but at least there's a firm foundation to stand on and we're not sinking deeper into it. And then in the fourth line, there was someone giving someone food and drink through an open window, and that was auspicious. It showed that someone was accepting help and not having to continue to look for an opening because one was afforded them through the opening of the window and the food being put in. But there was still a need to sit and wait. And then the sixth line was entirely inauspicious. And I'm going to pull out James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes and go over the changing lines at least in here, because what he had to say about it was nice and succinct and summed them up pretty well. So in changing line 2, he broke it down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, don't fight dark forces. Adapt to your situation until you can escape. B, a dangerous though stable position. Remain calm and don't rock the boat. And then changing line 4, he broke down into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, reduce the situation to its lowest common denominator and proceed from there. B, complexity demands patience. Nourish yourself on simplicity. And C, an educational process. The image suggests patience and gradual change. I like what he says here too. He says, this image implies that the dangerous elements in the situation are caused by some kind of complexity, vanity, bureaucracy, or Byzantine intellectualism, perhaps. Whatever it is, a return to basics is indicated. While surrounded by a feast of choices, one partakes only of simple nourishment or options. So we are to simplify things and to act in accord with things in their simplest way that we can break them down, their lowest common denominator. And then changing line 6, he breaks them down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you have lost your way and are imprisoned by illusions. And B, your limiting beliefs prevent you from furthering the work. In that, we found somebody tied up and tossed into a thicket of thorns, or like a prison of thorn walls, and that they wouldn't escape for 3 years. So yeah, not all good auspicious hexagrams or changing lines this evening, or this morning rather. We will read from the Tao Te Ching, verse 72. My copy is translated by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Verse 72 of the Tao Te Ching. When men lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. Do not intrude in their homes. Do not harass them at work. If you do not interfere, they will not weary of you. Therefore the sage knows himself but makes no show, has self-respect but is not arrogant. He lets go of that and chooses this. Blackthorn are the two most protective woods per Druid lore. I don't know if you want to call it lore, but you know, love you. Peace.